Okay, so the webinar today is learning how to protect your blockchain idea, including can you patent Bitcoin? So again, thanks to everyone for attending. I'm Graeser. I am the CEO and founder of KISS Patent. I'm a US patent agent. I have over 21 years of experience as a patent agent. I've done patents for quite a long time. I also programmed with the Human Genome Project, and I was also in-house for a while, so I've been on both sides of the table. In other words, I've seen what it's like to be in a startup, to want to patent as many things, protect as many things as possible, to always have questions about budget, what can you get done? And so I've really learned from both sides of the table how is the best way to make your dollars, euros, or pounds stretch to protect your idea. So this is what happens when you hang out too long with lawyers. This is a disclaimer. Nothing in this presentation or in any material provided, whether verbally or in writing, constitutes legal or patent advice. So, can you patent Bitcoin? Well, the short answer is you can't patent Bitcoin. Satoshi Nakamoto, who might be a person, might be a team, released it freely in 2009, and this person or team did not file for a patent. So Bitcoin itself is open source in the sense that anyone can use the Bitcoin paradigm. They can make modifications. We've seen now variations on the blockchain idea, including various hyperledger ideas, Ethereum, etc. So Bitcoin itself cannot be patented. However, you can protect applications of Bitcoin and blockchain with patents. The rate of patent filings in this area is soaring. Everyone from Amazon to Verizon and everyone in between, including, of course, many of the banks, are all filing for Bitcoin and blockchain patents. You don't want to file too late. If you have a Bitcoin or blockchain idea, you need to file fast because someone else could file before you. Now, this is a very important point on patents. Patents are first to file. The first to file wins. If you work on your idea for 2 years, and someone else works on it for only a month, but they file for a patent before you, they win. Doesn't matter that you're working on it for 2 years. It only matters who files for a patent first. So we'll get into how the rate of blockchain patents filing is really accelerating and how important it is to file quickly. But just remember, it is a race, and if someone else beats you to it, then you're out of luck. Welcome to the new participants. I see a few more people just joined. Again, I'm Graeser. Thank you so much for attending the webinar. As a quick note, you can put in an anonymous question through the Q&A button. If you ask a question through the chat, only I will see it, but it will not be anonymous. I'll see who it is. So please feel free to ask questions at any time, and I'll answer to them as I see them pop up. And also, I apologize in advance for coughing, which I may do. I still have a cold. So did you know Jamie Dimon of JP Morgan, he's the CEO, said that Bitcoin is a fraud. He actually said this yesterday on September 18th, 2017, actually at a conference. Now, he said it's a fraud because he said it's a made-up currency, and you can't just make up a currency out of thin air. However, it's important to note that all currencies are fiat currencies. Fiat is a Latin word meaning let it be done. What this means is that these currencies are backed by the faith of individuals and institutions in whoever is backing the currency. So for example, in the US, the dollar is backed by faith in the US government. The dollar hasn't been on the gold standard for over 40 years. So the fact is that all currencies are fiat currencies, as is Bitcoin. So that's not a reason to dislike it. The question is really, what is backing each currency, and to what extent do you believe in it? 1/3 of all US patent applications mentioning Bitcoin or blockchain were published in 2017. What this means is that since 2009, when Bitcoin was released, there have been over 1,000 US patent applications which have published since then. Now, US patent applications, like patent applications all over the world, publish 18 months after they're filed. So when I say something was published, let's say as of this date in 2017, what it really means is that they were filed up to 18 months earlier, which will bring us to March 2016. So we're looking at what is known as a trailing indicator. It's kind of the tip of the iceberg. 20% more patent applications have been published in the US mentioning Bitcoin or blockchain to date in 2017 than in all of 2016. So this is accelerating, and many more published in 2016 than in 2015. Every year, my apologies, every year, the rate of blockchain patent application filings has been going up, and it's been going up exponentially. In other words, the rate is also accelerating. So we're going to talk today about patents, and specifically patents for protecting your blockchain ideas. And here's just a brief overview of what patents are. Patents are the broadest protection for your idea. They protect the core of your idea. Unlike other forms of idea protection, patents are the only ones which allow you to block the entire core of your idea and protect it from competitors. For this reason, it's the best defense against copycats. But patents have an even better function. You can use them to block competitors from entering your space. In other words, if you define a market niche that you want to protect with patents, a blockchain idea, let's say, something in the hyperledger, you can use patents. You'd have to file more than one, but you can use patents to protect that entire market niche. Only patents allow you to do this. There is no other form of idea protection that allows you to actually block competitors from entering your space. So what is patentable? Well, anything under the sun made by the hand of man. That's actually a quote from a Supreme Court case enabling bacteria that have been engineered to be patented. Basically, things that fall into patentable categories include software, hardware, high tech, and mechanical devices, etc. But we're talking about technology. It has to be some kind of technological innovation to be protected by a patent. So what is not patentable? Well, first of all, anything related to content. So if your idea is mostly on content, music, images, books, etc., that's protected by copyright. That is a much more narrow right. You can get protection from it, but it has to be a much more direct copy. Patents allow you to block similar ideas that your competitors may want to use. Copyright does not. If it's not pretty much a one-to-one copy, copyright won't protect you. Of course, another type of protection for ideas includes names, logos, and slogans. These are protected by trademarks. Coke, Coca-Cola, Coke the real thing, and of course the Coke logo. But again, these are not patentable ideas, and the protection provided is much more narrow. Now, another important point is anything you want to keep secret is not patentable. If you want to keep your idea as a trade secret, something you're not going to share with the world, then you can't get a patent for it. A patent requires you to share your ideas with the world in the form of a patent application, which we'll discuss in a moment. So this is kind of a very general overview slide on everything. The main idea is that patents are a form of idea protection that allow you to block others. Other people can also try to block you with patents as well. You can use patents defensively. Someone attacks you, you can say, hey, I have a patent as well, and you're probably infringing my patent, so let's trade. We'll discuss in a minute how to patent your idea. We'll go through that whole middle column. In order for idea to be patentable, it has to be in a patentable category. It has to be new, otherwise known as novel. It also has to have that wow factor, which is very subjective and hard to define. And of course, you have to be first. I have seen cases where two inventors were separated by 19 days, barely more than 2.5 weeks. Example of Snapchat, they actually filed for their, you hold down the camera button and it switches to video. They filed for that idea under the old rules where you could argue that you were first to invent, and they had gotten to a big argument with the other side who had also invented this. But quite frankly, they had a 19-day difference under the new rules. It's not clear they would have actually won. So first to file is what you have to do under those new rules. And you don't want to be on the wrong side of that 19-day divide. So you can get a patent in 4 simple steps. You do a search to see if you're first. This search should include both patents and patent applications, but should also include anything that's publicly available, any kind of publication. So publications can also include TED Talks, they can include released software, they can include articles published on someone's website, on a blog, but also on newspapers, magazines, anything which has been published, made publicly available. You then have to prepare your drawings and text. Now, I'll show you towards the end an example of a patent drawing. They're not that hard to do, especially for software. They're basically blocks with lines or arrows, so they're quite simple. The text has to describe the drawings. You want to have at least 7 to 10 drawings. And then you also want to have text describing the drawings. You then file your patent application at the US Patent and Trademark Office or any other government office, and then the examiner checks your patent application. How long does it take? Well, the search takes 1 week. It takes 2 weeks to prepare the drawings and text, a day to file the patent application, and then the examiner checks the patent application. That takes 1 to 5 years or more. So as you can see, you can file fairly quickly for your idea, but then it ends up incubating for a while. As a startup, that is actually not a bad thing, because as long as your patent application is incubating, as long as it's pending, then you have the advantage that no one knows exactly what kind of protection you'll end up getting. So you can actually argue that you're entitled to very broad patent protection. I've seen actually a number of companies do this, and they've used this to get investors and partners to go with them as opposed to other companies. So ownership in blockchain. One important point is you can also assign ownership of your patent to your company. If you have a startup, even if you don't have a startup right away, if you don't have a company right away, you can still file for a patent as an individual inventor, and then later on assign or transfer ownership to your company. I've been asked the question if a DAO, a distributed autonomous organization, if they can actually own a patent or it can own a patent. It's not really clear if a DAO could, because it is not defined as a legal person. In fact, it's actually not clear that a DAO can own anything. So I don't know if a DAO, which is something which would operate on the blockchain, I don't know if that could actually own the patent for you, but certainly your company could, and of course you can as an individual inventor. So why file your patent? Well, patents give you control. You decide how others can use your idea. You can block others from patenting your idea, and you can also keep big companies from stealing your idea. Remember that if you don't file for a patent, it's very hard to prevent others from copying your great idea. Microsoft and Apple are notorious for this, but other companies do it as well. And even if they don't want to copy your idea, if they think of the idea before you have a chance to actually execute on it, that is to release your software, and you haven't filed for a patent, they could still end up effectively taking your idea even if they didn't realize it was yours. Big companies are filing for patents in this space. So Amazon has filed for at least 7 US patents in the Bitcoin space. eBay has filed for at least 2, and Coinbase has filed for at least 7. Of course, they are a Bitcoin purse, so that's one thing you'd expect them to do. There's also fear of being blocked. Currently, the only defense for startups is to file their Bitcoin patents first. The reason why is that there's no agreement in the Bitcoin or blockchain space as to who owns what or how patents should be shared or how ideas should be shared. The Chamber of Digital Congress is trying to find a solution because, of course, what they're worried about is that the big banks, for example, could come, file for many great Bitcoin blockchain ideas, and they could end up blocking other people and preventing them from actually using their ideas. There isn't any way around this except for startups to file their own Bitcoin or blockchain patents before the big companies do, and then they can use those patents as a defense. So what can you protect? Well, first of all, you can protect financial applications built on the blockchain. There's a lot of those, obviously. Any type, Coinbase has quite a few, but any kind of financial application involving Bitcoin, Ether, any of those things, different ways of trading it, protecting it, keeping it in a coin purse, any of those can be protected. Yes, if of course they're new and novel and non-obvious, they're different from what other people have done. Logistics and contracts can also be protected. This is actually a very burgeoning area. I've filed a number of patents in this area on the blockchain. And the reason why, of course, is the blockchain provides a permanent record. It is, because it's being transferred across all the blockchain nodes at once, it is impossible to falsify, that is to alter in a fraudulent way. So it's trusted. And it's a very good way for parties to get together across international lines because everyone has access to the blockchain internationally. It's not something which is restricted to a particular country. Plus, you don't necessarily have to trust the other party. Both parties can agree to trust an application built on blockchain, and then neither party has to actually trust each other. So that's also a big advantage. And of course, security and encryption applications. I've seen quite a few of these as well. Again, it's trusted, it's available internationally, and it is not able to be changed in a fraudulent manner. So what blockchain idea do you want to protect? Well, you want to protect the heart of your business. That is the part of your business that you can't do without. And of course, anything the user experiences. When it comes to blockchain ideas, it's not, as for any other idea, it's not the back office that you want to protect. It's not the things that the user doesn't necessarily see. Now, of course, you want to protect those things as well, but what's particularly important is the solution that the user views. Remember, the user is coming to you in order to get the best solution possible. And to the extent the user experiences your product as a solution, that is what you want to protect, because that is what your competitors are most likely to try to steal. You don't want to wait to file, as I mentioned before, because someone else could file first and they could then block you from filing. Remember, patents are first to file. One of the best ways that I recommend to start is with a provisional application. Actually, I realize I've gone rather fast. Are there any questions on this? Or anything I've gone through? I went through, I guess, a bit quickly. It might be a good time now to see if anyone has any questions. I actually see one question. Thank you so much for asking this. The question is, what do you need to actually file for your patent? That is, how much information do you have to have? Well, for blockchain, as for any other patentable idea, the information that you need to have is at least a design of your idea. Now, you don't need to have built your idea. This is a very important point because sometimes people have come to me, they want to file for a patent application because they want to be able to talk about it with potential partners. And they want to also test out the waters and see if people are interested. And they're afraid people are going to take their idea. So they come to me and they tell me, look, we have this design for idea. We know what we wanted to do, but we haven't built it yet. And that's actually enough, especially in software and also hardware. If you have a design of your idea, that's enough to file for a patent application. You don't actually need to have built your idea, not even an MVP, minimum viable product. So for that reason, I do recommend that people file for their patent as quickly as possible, but certainly at least you have to have a design. Once you have a design, you can file. One other note in terms of when it's too late to file, if you publish your idea, you can only file in the US, but you have a year to do so after publication. Publication can be anything that makes your idea public, releasing your software, putting it up on your website, giving a TED Talk, releasing a YouTube video. Anything where you're putting the information out there publicly starts the publication clock. It means you can only file for a patent in the US, but you can file for a patent within 1 year of your publication. Oh, and I see another question. Let me see if I can get this. Okay. Someone that mentioned, asked a really good question. Bitcoin is global. Where should I file to get full protection? That is a really super good question. And basically, what you need to do to get global protection is you have to file in more than one country. Now, what do I mean by that? let's suppose you want to get protection in the US for your Bitcoin idea. You'd have to file in the US. But that would not protect you in China. A competitor could copy your Bitcoin idea in China. So you'd have to file for your patent also in China. Now, this sounds like a lot of work, but there's actually a process to do that which is not terribly difficult. You start with filing the US Provisional. You can see this up here on the screen. I'll talk about what this is in a moment. You then have up to a year to decide how you want to proceed. If you want to file for international protection, you can file a special kind of international patent application within 1 year called a PCT application. And this international application will basically allow you to buy another 1.5 years to decide what countries you want to file in. So 2.5 years from your first date of filing an application, which I recommend to be US Provisional, as I'm showing you on the screen, 2.5 years from that first filing date, you would then need to file in all countries where you'd want to have protection. Now, in terms of where my clients like to file, definitely the US, #1 choice for obvious reasons. It's the single biggest market. It's also relatively inexpensive to get a patent in China and the US as compared to other countries. After that, I would say the #2 choice these days is China, followed by #3 Europe. And then other countries like Canada, Australia, Japan, those countries tend to be more secondary. Filing in the US, China and Europe, let's say, would set you back around $15,000 to $20,000. But again, that could be at the end of 2.5 years. As we'll discuss in a moment, the US Provisional application, your starting block, is the least expensive way to get your foot in the door. And then you can buy more time with this international application to decide where it is you want to file. But, and here is the caveat, of course, if you publish your idea first before you file, let's say for the US Provisionals I'm recommending, then you can only file in the US and only within 1 year of publication. That's a really super important point to remember, because a lot of times people come to me after they've already talked about their idea publicly. Maybe they put up a YouTube video, maybe they release their MVP publicly, right? Not as a closed alpha, but actually as a public software. And in that case, what would happen is you would only be able to file in the US. So I hope that answered your question about international protection. What I guess the takeaway from all this is, if you do want to have international protection, which I agree, Bitcoin is global, international protection is super important, then you need to plan ahead. And what this means is you have to get your first patent application, which I recommend to be the provisional, you have to get that filed as quickly as possible. And then once you've actually had that filed, then you would have up to a year to decide if maybe you do want international protection, and then 1.5 years after that to file in all the countries where you would actually like to have that protection. See, any more questions? Okay, I think I went a little too fast on the publication question. I see a question about that. Sorry, I'll explain that. The question was this. On the question of publication, if you file for a patent application and then you publish, can you still file in other countries? And the answer to that is yes. If you file for a patent application first and then you publish, you're okay, as long as you continue the process. So again, the process is you start with your first patent application. Within 1 year, you decide you want to go international. Within 1.5 years after that, you decide what countries you want to file in. So once you've filed for your patent application, you can publish. You can release your MVP as an open beta if you want, or however you want to release it. You can give that TED Talk. You can put it on your website. You can release the YouTube video. So as long as you file first and then publish, you're totally free to file in other countries. If, however, you publish first and then you file, you can only file in the US. So I hope that answered that question about the publication. Someone else actually asked a question about patent applications publishing. Okay, this is interesting. What they say is, patent applications, can I see other people's provisional applications? They're like, when do they publish? And the answer to that is no. You can only see patent applications after they publish, which is a year and a half from when the provisional or first application is filed. And then they have to follow through with the process. They have to file the next patent application as well. So in order to see other people's patent applications, they had to have continued the process. And you can only see it a year and a half after they file. What this means is if two people file for patent applications, they may not know that the other person's filed. Like let's say person A filed, filed on August 1st and person B filed on September 1st of this year. They're gonna have no idea if the other person filed or not. They're not gonna know what other patent applications are filed. And at the end of that year, when they have to make the decision if they want to go international, they still won't know. It's a black hole of 18 months. So you can search for published patent applications and published patents, but unfortunately, you're going to have a big lag. And so what it means is you're going to end up potentially missing on a lot of things, but that's true for everybody. In other words, if you file for a patent application today, no one's going to see it for a year and a half. Eventually it will publish. It'll publish after that year and a half, or if you decide to file only in the US with a non-publication request, then it will only file after it becomes a patent in the US. But everyone's in the same boat. This is one reason I do urge people to file quickly, is even if you do a search and it looks like everything's okay, you still want to file fast because you don't really know who's filing when or what someone may do tomorrow. Sorry, I had a bit of a cough there. You don't really know what's happening, so it's a good idea to file as quickly as possible, and at least you'll have a seat at the table. How much protection you'll get, how broad the protection will be, it's really hard to know. In a fast-moving area like Bitcoin and blockchain, where I'm guessing just from the number of publications alone to date, we could have up to 50% more patent applications publishing in 2017 than published in 2016. So it makes it really hard to know who is filed and what they filed for. I do recommend doing a search. You can do one on your own. If you have a question about that, you can let me know. I'd also be happy to speak with you separately on the phone later on. If you just reach out to us, schedule a call, I can show you actually how to do a simple and free patent search on Google Patents, but you're not going to see everything because of that 18-month lag. Okay, any more questions before I continue with the provisional? Okay, so a US provisional application is a great way to get your foot in the door. It's a temporary application. It has the fewest rules and regulations governing it because it's intended by the US Patent and Trademark Office to allow people to file quickly and then be able to go out and talk freely about their idea. It's only available in the US, but it gives you an international date. You have the international right to your filing date for 1 year, meaning if you continue the process and you file, let's say in China, 2.5 years down the line, after continuing that process, everything in that provisional application will be given that same date that you filed the provisional application in China. In other words, you'll be given the right to that date. So when the Chinese patent examiner looks to see if your idea is new and different from what everyone else has done, that provisional filing date, they're going to have to look for things before that provisional filing date. So it gives you the right to the date, you get your foot in the door, and you can do it really fast. You then can change your patent within a year. So the provisional application only lasts a year. It's basically meant for you to figure out what it is you want to do. Within 1 year, you can file a follow-up application. You can also make changes at the end of that year, and you can do it before you file your regular application in the US or other countries directly, or that special international application that I mentioned to you called the PCT. It has far fewer requirements. Basically, if you can whiteboard your idea, if you can whiteboard the drawings for your idea, you can file for a provisional. And again, you only need to have a design of your idea. You do not need to have the full idea in hand in terms of the execution details. You just need to have the design. And because you can make changes within the year, let's say you file the provisional and you figure out a year later, wow, we've made a lot of changes. We had to pivot. That's totally cool. You can make those changes and go forward in the international or the US patent area with those changes. It's quite inexpensive, but it still gives you full coverage in terms of the date. So it gives you the same coverage for that date, which is really important because remember, you have to be first to file. It gives you the same coverage for that date internationally as a regular US full application. So it's really a bargain. This is an example of a patent drawing. This is actually taken from a software patent application of Facebook. Mark Zuckerberg is one of the inventors. And as you can see, it's boxes and lines. You have a few user devices connected to a network, which is traditionally shown as a fluffy cloud in patents. And that's connected to a server, which is a social network provider, and the mini feed engine. This is actually the newsfeed patent. So patent drawings are about this complicated. You can also show methods or flows, processes with boxes and arrows. Any kind of drawing like this, very simple, very logical, but schematic, simple blocks, simple lines, everything nicely labeled. This is an example of what you need for a patent drawing. This is why you only need your design. You don't actually need to have built the software at all. This is the level of design you need, which is not an extremely high level also. It's a fairly actually basic level when it comes to the design. So once you have a design at this level, you can already file for your patent application. So a question I get asked a lot is if people can do this on their own. And the answer is you could, but of course there are issues. One of which is that startups and patents both are quite complicated. So you have a strategy for your patent. And you want to be confident that you're making the right choice. Deciding not to file and delaying it can end up being a choice if you delay for so long that you're no longer able to file for a patent application. So for example, you publish your idea before you file for your patent. Now you can only file in the US. Competitors in China and Europe, they can do whatever they like with your idea. Let's suppose you wait more than a year after you publish your idea. Well, now you can't even file in the US. So, as is often true in startup life, not making a decision can be the same thing as making a decision. And one thing I emphasize to everyone is simply be certain that you're making the right choice and really come down to a choice. Again, I'd be more than happy to have a call with each of you afterward. Feel free to reach out to me. You can also just send an email to us, sign up. If you put your email right now into the Q&A, or if you just address me in the chat, which should be open, you can put your email in there, and then I'll see it, and I'll be able to respond to you in case you have specific questions like when do I file and how do I file that are particular to your situation. But at the very least, do make an active decision. Don't just let it wait and then discover that you've actually made a decision by not making one. Okay, I see I have another question. Yep, very good. Excellent. Yes, okay, so the question is, yes, if you do reach out to me, we can talk about the specifics of your particular idea. Like I said, I'd be happy to show you how to do a search. And I'd also be happy to talk with you about timing. It is possible to file too early. That was another question that just popped up. Yes, it is possible to file too early. Generally speaking, I always emphasize that people should file sooner rather than later. You should have at least the design of your idea. You should also know that the provisional application only lasts 1 year. So if there isn't any possibility of you knowing what you want to do at the end of the year, yes, you would be filing too early if you filed now. You should have a roadmap that would enable you to, within the year, have a general idea of where you're going, understand what you want to do, understand what business you want to be in, understand your business model. If you can't have that within a year, then I would say, don't file yet, you're not ready. But if you do have an idea of your business model, you know what you want to test, you know how you want to approach it, you do have the design, that's really enough. You can go ahead and file. Generally speaking, with my clients, I have found that we have had far more problems from filing too late than filing too early. Filing too early has been relatively rare in the software area. And certainly in Bitcoin and blockchain, I have yet to find a client who filed too early. All of my clients have filed. Within a year, they were able to continue with their idea. They did not have a problem. So I would say, well, it's possible to file too early. Filing too late is far more likely to be a problem. All right. Yep, there we go. This is how we can help. All right, this is the small ad here. We have fixed price packages which are tailored to your needs. So you know exactly what you're paying for. With most patent attorneys, what happens is they charge by the hour. And you have no idea how much it's going to cost. They give you an estimate, you have no idea what's going to happen. But because everything is fixed price with us, then you know exactly how much it's going to cost in advance. We also have different packages tailored to your needs, so you have full control over what you get. If you don't want a certain service, don't pay for it. You can only pay for the services you want. And of course, we give you full support. We have worked with many, many software and hardware companies and startups. We know what it is you need. We have our basic patent package for $2,500 for the provisional patent application. We'll give you a 10% discount if you order it with our webinar 10 promo code. Feel free also to reach out to me, like I said, if you have questions before you order, if you want to understand how to order, if you'd rather I send you a direct PayPal invoice. We have lots of ways that we can help you out. However, we also have a special discount. If you put in the webinar promo code, you'll get 20% off. It's only going to be operative for a week. Again, if you speak with me and you say you need a little more time, we can negotiate that. But in general, I only offer it for a week after the webinar, 20% off. So if you put in this promo code at the checkout process, then you can get 20% off for the patent. And again, feel free to reach out to me if you have questions or if you want to have more information before you decide that you want to go forward. All of these fixed price packages include having us draft the patent application for you. Of course, for the particular package I'm talking about right now, the $2,500 package, our basic patent package with 20% off, we would need you to do the drawings, but you saw all the drawings. They're really simple. They're blocks and lines, and we can also give you guidance on that, so it's really not hard to do. We then draft the patent application, we file for it, it includes an assignment, and includes reminders about all the upcoming steps you'd need. And again, I'd be happy to have a talk with you if you have more questions about it. So that is all I have for now. Let me just put this up. One other question that popped up in terms of the value that a patent gives. Well, obviously, when your company is very successful, the patent could be immeasurably valuable. But for an immediate value, like why should you do this now? It's a future thing. You're hoping in the future it'd be super valuable. The reason why to do it now actually is that VCs will typically increase the valuation of your startup by $1 million for each patent filed. It's a rule of thumb. I've seen many VCs mention this rule of thumb. It seems to be generally accepted in the VC community. So if you think about it, 20% off our $2,500 package, only $2,000 bucks. You will end up with potentially $1 million added to your startup's valuation. So that's the immediate value. The immediate value is for VCs, and of course, the potential it gives by increasing the valuation of your startup. Later on, when you go to exit, whether through an IPO or through a sale, the potential value of your company can increase exponentially due to the patents and patent applications that you have. So for example, Google actually filed for patents even before they became Google, even before they incorporated as a company. So there's an immediate value, but there's also a long-term value. And I think both are super beneficial for startups. Now, let's see, do we have any more questions? I'd also be happy to go back to a slide. I see some people actually joined us a bit late. I'd actually be happy to go back to a slide or something in case, I don't know, you forgot something or we lost you somewhere. Yep. Any more questions? Well, okay, I think then that wraps it up if we don't have any more. I see some people have actually given me their email addresses. If you go ahead and do that, then I'll be able to contact you afterwards and we can set up a special time to talk. So that is really super useful for everyone involved. Otherwise, if you reach out to us afterwards with questions, again, I'd be super happy to answer them at any time that you'd like. So thanks so much to everyone for attending. I'm going to actually turn off the share right now and stop the meeting. Okay, folks, thanks again, and I am looking forward to getting your questions. Please feel free to email me at any point. We can set up a call to answer your questions. Thanks so much.